Hello, everyone. It's me, Andrew. I'm here in my home in lovely Ligonier, Pennsylvania. Hopefully, you all are having a great start to your week so far. It's been busy, busy, busy for us here at Allegory Gallery. So today I caught up on a bunch of emails. I had to fill in some forms, lots of paperwork today. And then the internet has been down here at the house. We think that the box is bad. So we are having to have them come out and replace it because it's not something that we can do ourselves. So it's been interesting. So I had to run up to the cottage, run over there, and do some work at the cottage and attend a Zoom meeting. There's a really wonderful exhibition in New York right now called Restringing the Pearl. It's at the Jewelry Library. And it features a lot of really amazing artists, jewelry makers, blacksmiths. It's awesome. So if you haven't gotten a chance, look that up. It's super cool. Some really inventive and creative projects that kind of talk about pearls. And I love pearls. So that was a cool thing to see. If you can't go to New York, sometimes you just can't. They have a really wonderful website, and the artists talked about some of their stories. So that was pretty cool. So after this is done, or whenever you are available, check that out. If you're watching, say hello and maybe where you're from. It's always nice to see folks, especially when we're starting out. Mary Ann's watching. Hi, Mary Ann. Norma's watching. Hi, Norma. Bonnie's watching. Hi, Bonnie. Lorraine is watching. Hi, Lorraine. Barbara's watching and shedding the negativity. Oh, good, good. It's always nice when we can kind of come together and kind of relax. Our neighbor Susan's watching. Hey there. Thanks again for helping watch the cats while we were away at Touchstone. Um, that was super handy dandy. Harry's watching. Hi, Harry. Yeah, so we are getting ready for our next trip. Um, One of my pieces was selected for the show We Are Here at the Metals Museum in Memphis, Tennessee. The opening reception for We Are Here is on Sunday, June 4th. So we will be going to Memphis to attend the opening, and I'm super excited about it. It's the first time that one of my pieces has been shown in a museum show that's like a real museum show. Like there's a couple things that I've done where it's like pop-ups or in relation to like the educational departments, but this is the first real museum show, and I'm super proud of it. So we're going to go out there. They asked me to speak. I was like, oh boy, another speaking thing. But I'm not going to prepare too hard and over prepare and make myself crazy. I'm just going to go with it. And yeah, I made the piece. I know about the piece. I know about myself. So shouldn't be too bad, right? And I don't think they're doing anything like slides or anything like that. So it should be fine. Yeah, so I'm excited. If any of you are going to be there, let me know and we'll try to meet up. Maybe grab a beverage before or after. We're going to try to go to the Touchstone open house on Saturday, June 3rd in the morning, and then leave straight from there and go over to Memphis. So it's going to be an interesting, long drive, and then we'll drive back. So I'm kind of excited to just to sit put for a little while, because we've been running. And I haven't had very much time to like work on stuff and organize my studio. And every time I go into my studio, I'm like, where's this? Where's this? Where's this? So it'd be nice to spend some time organizing. I've been pretty diligent about saying no to stuff, but somehow I always get kind of roped into things. Um, so we've got 2 weeks to prepare for our trip, and a little less than 2 weeks. So we're getting ready for that. So cleaning the house and getting ready for that, and then hopefully, if the test results come back good, then we'll have kittens. So our friend V, they had a cat that was hanging around that had kittens. So they've been taking care of the little babies until they can go to the vet. And once they do, then maybe we'll have kittens in the house. So I'm excited for that. But we were thinking of getting them this weekend, but then we were like, well, then they'd be alone with the older cats for that weekend, and then we might come back and then there's no kittens left. So, it's all. I'm sure they'll get along once they have time to settle with one another. But I would like to do that settling with supervision. And I can't ask somebody who's watching the cats to like make sure the other cats don't kill the babies. So I think that would be like trauma time. So yeah. So let's see. Bonnie says that's awesome. Memphis is fun. Yeah, I've been a couple times and I've had a really good time every time I've gone. Um, and so that should be a lot of fun. I'm gonna try to do like a sale or something coming up soon. Try and make some stuff to sell so that we can actually enjoy the trip instead of like warming up cup of noodles in the hotel. Barbara says, "Go with your gut." Yeah, I think that's one of those things where, with this past speech, I got another message, and somebody was talking about how deeply moved they were by this speech, and that they cried all the way home, and so like I'm super hard on myself, but I also realize that I see the things that didn't go wrong, didn't go right, and other people see the things that did go right. And it was really such an honor for somebody to take the time out of their day to tell me that the words that I shared kind of resonated with them. So that was really nice. So even though I don't think I did that great, and I went a little bit over my time, which wasn't that big of a deal, because one of the other presenters ended up having to didn't end up coming because he had an emergency surgery. So we had a little bit of time to fill. So it wasn't the end of the universe. But and normally, if everything's like well oiled and everything, if everybody's there and stuff, that would be kind of disrespectful for the other presenters encroaching on their time. So I feel bad about that, but not as bad as I could have. Anyway, so I speak every day, so it shouldn't be too bad of a problem. Marion says, speak from your heart and it will go well. I agree. That's what I always tell other people. They're like, what do I write? What do I say? And I say, if you speak from your heart, you can never go wrong. Well, maybe, but you have to judge your audience. Cheryl says, hi, Andrew. You'll do fantastic. Enjoy every moment. Well, I will certainly try. And Marion says, kittens are so much fun. Yeah, I'm excited to meet them. I've been enjoying them on the internet and watching them kind of grow up. I'm sad that I'm missing their baby time, like the most littlest time. But we want to make sure that Barnaby and Gilbert are well protected and they don't accidentally get something that they will then develop into like a lifelong illness. So, we're doing our due diligence and trying to make sure that everybody's happy and healthy. Harry says one of our outdoor cats, Dawn, has had kittens. We have not seen them yet. Oh boy, it's like a treasure hunt then. Um, Marion says that part of the post nearly caused me to cry. And Barbara says, I'm often deeply moved by what you talk about on your live. So whatevs. Well, thank you. Thank you. So we've been getting ready for that. If you didn't see yesterday's live, it was pretty cool. We had some stainless steel pieces that I think are super, super duper nice. They're lightweight and they are, I think that they look nice. And then the gold ones are 18 karat gold plated and they're hypoallergenic. They're lightweight and pretty sturdy. So I think it would be good for earrings and or whatever you want, really. I will say that if you use it as a focal, you might have to do something with weighting, depending on what you string it with, because if you put it with a bunch of big beads, it might kind of ride up. But yeah, so we showed those yesterday. I don't know if William has had a chance to invoice or not. Probably not, because we had a business meeting after our lives and after my board meeting. So, and we had to talk about our plans for the weekend coming up and some other things that we're doing with the business. I think it's always good to check in once in a while, sometimes you can think that everything is moving along smoothly and then you get surprised. So it's, I think, super important to keep the lines of communication open. So we have periodic business meetings, which you may think is weird because we live together and spend a lot of time together, but I don't think it's that bad. So anyways, I'm here at the house and not at the cottage because they're doing filming for the Saturday morning tutorial with Jen over at the cottage because they have internet there. And then, so I had to rush back over here and I was like, what am I going to do? And I had an idea of stuff, but then I was like, I don't want to haul all that stuff. So, yeah. So if you don't know, William is taking some pottery classes. He is taking one on Wednesday night and Thursday night. So that means you're going to get me Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and sometimes whenever. So I hope you don't get sick of me because we're going to be spending a lot of time together potentially. So yeah. Teresa's watching. Hey, Teresa. So I'm excited. I don't usually go on camera as much. Usually you'll hear me in the background of the videos. And that's usually because I'm trying to work or do different things in the background, um, you know, or try to keep things going behind the scenes. So I'm excited for that. If you haven't seen Jen's latest tutorial, that went live on Saturday morning, this past Saturday. And she did a lot of really cool kind of wire working basics, which even though I've been making jewelry for 20 plus years, it's always nice to get a refresher from a different perspective because I think it's so helpful. It's just so helpful, I think, when you can kind of look at things through a different pair of eyes. Because we all do things differently. And so it's nice to be able to stop and kind of see things from an alternative perspective. All right, this is the time where I'm going to ask people to like and share these posts. If you like any of our content, be sure to like it or love it or wow it. It certainly helps, especially on Facebook and on YouTube. And if you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel, please do so. Oh, and our friends down at Touchstone, which I'm a board member of, have started a YouTube channel. And I hope that all of you out there will give them a subscribe. Because I think it's so nice when we can all kind of share and help them reach their 1,000 mark. They're just started promoting their YouTube channel and getting stuff going there, like officially, because they've been doing it for a while. But there's only so many hours in the day. But I would love to see them get to 1,000 by the end of the year. I don't know if that's possible because it took us like 2 years to do it. But I'm sure with all of your help out there, we can make sure that they reach their 1,000 goal sooner than rather than later. All right. Marion says, done, did it already. Oh, good. Thank you so much. We appreciate that. Lorraine says, always learning something new. Good, good, good. Harry says, I did subscribe yesterday and shared it. Yeah, thank you. I saw that you had subscribed. Oh, if you ever get a chance, I know you're further out west, but I think you would have a blast coming out here. I know you have a lot of cats and stuff you got to take care of, and you're always busy. But I think it would be so fun if you ever get a chance to come out here, take a workshop down at Touchstone. When we were there over the weekend, they were doing a firing in their wood fire kiln, and that I'm gonna butcher it. Nagormi. I don't remember how to say it, but it's something Japanese and it starts with an N. And they're super cool. It was super cool. They have to fire it for 48 hours. And like the first 24 hours is getting it up to temperature. And then the last part of that is they're constantly feeding it wood. And the wood was all stacked and had to be dried. And they had to stack it in such a way that air could come through it. And they had volunteers and students coming on shifts. And there's always like this rotation people. And William, his Thursday class will culminate in that, but I don't think the kiln is as big as the one at Touchstone. I see. Oh, Marion says, and subscribe to the YouTube's channel. Oh, good. Or Touchstone's YouTube channel. Teresa says, what is their full name? Touchstone. It's Touchstone Center for Crafts, and they're located in Farmington, Pennsylvania. And you'll know them by their teasel. And you're like, what the heck is a teasel? Well, maybe you're not, but some people are like, what the heck is a teasel? It's a type of plant that has barbs on it and beautiful purple flowers, and it's kind of like almost like claws in a way. But they used to use that in the processing of fibers, which I think is pretty cool. Like when you think of like carding wool and stuff or carding cotton or whatever, you usually think of those like metal, I don't know what they're called, carding thrashers. I don't know. But they look like cat hair combs, but they're used for pulling out all the junk in the fibers and getting them stretched out and stuff. Anyway, so they used to like nail them to a board and use that. So I think that's pretty cool. Harry just added the address to Touchstone Center for Crafts. So if you didn't get a chance, go on ahead over there and give them a subscribe. I would deeply appreciate it. I think they're cool people. Marion says, I just call mine carding tools. I think there's a name. I think there's like a real name, but it went away. I don't do a ton with fibers, but I am peripherally interested in all things craft. And there was a flax scutching festival that happens in September around here. And they were talking about such devices. And anyway, so yeah, it's been super busy. So Tomorrow I was supposed to head into Pittsburgh, but I don't know if that's still going to happen. I'm going to have to confirm or deny the plans. And then Thursday, I have to do something. I can't remember what it is. Friday is a metals meetup and the creative make along. So, and we have somebody coming into town who is watching the live. So that should be a lot of fun. So busy, busy, busy. And that's just the tippy tip of the iceberg. All right, so let me flip things around and we'll get started. Now, I'm going to preface this and say that it has been a hot minute since I've done this. So if I mess up terribly, uh, try not to judge me too hard. All right, let me see if I can do this. Get the stand. Um, and I'm so hungry. We just did, we just came back from Touchstone and they fed us well. And now I'm like, where's my dinner? Where's my thing? Anyway, so I'm going to clean up my area a little bit. And I put this background. So here are some pinch beads. I love pinch beads. They're so fun. They're useful to me, which is one of the reasons why I like them so much, is because they're useful. I know some people don't really care for them, but I do. And it says, I'm hungry too. No dinner tonight. I have to go to the nephew's lacrosse game. I don't know. Look like I'd be stopping somewhere and be like, I can't be watching this business on an empty stomach. All right. So these are the pinch beads, and I've got them in 3 different colors. During one of, I think, Kittapalooza, we had this kit and it had a bunch of different strands of these pinch beads. And I think they sold out, but I have more pinch beads. So if you are interested in some pinch beads and you didn't get any, there might be some on the website. That's allegorygallery.com. But you can also check out, if, or actually, no, you can't check it out because you can't see it. But if you email us at info@allegorygallery and you ask for pinch beads, we can kind of hook you up, because we've got some in the store and then we've got some at the cottage. So 2 different places. And they're really cool. Pinch beads, look, a close up would be, they're 3-sided. So they're shaped kind of like this, almost like a bicone. And it looks like somebody pinched them and squeezed that little goodness in the middle. And I don't want to lift it up too much because I didn't tie the ends off, but you can see them here. And they're 3-sided. Maybe it's a little bit more flared. So I think they're useful. They're great for geometric constructions. So some of you may have gotten a desert discovery box and got some of this rose quartz in it. And I got a bunch of rose quartz because I am a smitten kitten. I know some of y'all don't like the pink. I know. But you don't necessarily have to use this if you don't want to use this. But I got this in this. I got these 4 of the Desert Discovery boxes, and I just love them. I think people have been really interested in it. I've noticed that since the pandemic, there's been a real need for healing, and the rose quartz is associated with the heart chakra, and healing. So, and amplifying kind of positive vibes and kind of love and friendship and camaraderie and things like that. And I think you can't get enough of that in one's life. So here it is, y'all. I got this rose quartz. So one of the things that I like to do is I don't always like to use a whole strand in one piece. I like to sometimes, do, take one off of a strand and do something with it as a pendant or do something like that. So I like to do that because you get a little bit more bang for your buck, as they say. So for me, I want to get kind of like the most value out of the strands that I buy. So sometimes I'll pick a strand of beads, particularly larger beads like this. I mean, these aren't incredibly large, but they are larger than, say, these beads, and use that as kind of the focal for a necklace. So one of the things, though, is I also like to embellish things. So if I can use a bead cap or a fringe or something like that, it just adds a little bit more texture and gives it a little bit more interest, and makes it have a little bit more pizzazz, as they say. So I'm going to add a little pizzazz, as they say, to this bead that I'm going to use as a focal. All right. Um, ooh, I see some people are talking about food now. Harry says we are having momofuku noodles for supper with chicken and veg. That sounds good. William, if you're watching, maybe, um, William, if you're watching, if you can head down to the Mexican restaurant, they have a gift certificate for the open house raffle basket. So if you can pick that up and maybe pick up something to eat, that would be super good. Or Chinese, whatever you want to do. Now that Harry says that, I could eat like a boatload of vegetable lo mein right now, and I would not feel bad about it. I could drive there and just be like, "Can you supersize my vegetable lo mein, please?" And I would not have one little tiny shred of shame about stuffing my face right there in the parking lot and be like, "Mind your business. This is not for you. This is for me." But anyway, so Bonnie says my fave is rose quartz. I have a lot of faves, but yeah. Karen says, "Hi William. I'm the one coming on Friday. I can't wait. My name is Andrew. William is the white one. He's usually here, but I'm going to be doing a lot more of these lives until his classes wrap up. And his one class is ongoing, so he's gonna always be gone on Wednesdays, at least until he doesn't want to take that class anymore. So I don't know how long that will be. Hopefully, he'll just keep going because I think classes are so helpful. You meet so many wonderful people, and anyways. Teresa says, had goat cheese and tomato sandwich. That sounds good. Oh, I can't wait for tomato season. I can't wait for it, y'all. I'm so excited. A good fresh tomato. Heaven. Karen says, "Sorry I called you William. It's okay. It happens all the time." Susie says, "I'm making blackberry basil chicken burgers. I've never had that, but that sounds cool." All right. So, what we're going to do is I've got this. It's Fireline. This is also called Wildfire. It's also called Power Pro. This is their white or clear or crystal, and it is a 10-pound test. So I'm going to cut off one wingspan, and one wingspan is one arm and your torso. Somebody left this snarky comment on one of my friend's videos, be like, "Well, humans don't have wings," and I was like, "Maybe you don't," but anyways. So I got these. These are the nice little cutters, thread cutters, super duper sharp. Bonnie says, "Lo mein, yummy." Marion says, "I could have a Caesar salad and a chicken leg." That sounds good. Y'all gonna make me gonna crave the meat. the chicken meat of the chicken. We're vegetarians, so I don't know how that's going to go over. All right, so I've got my long needle. I think this is a 10. And then I'm going to thread this on camera. So good. May the odds ever be in my favor. I've seen some live demos where the person struggled with threading their needle on camera for like an hour, and I was like, I can't do it. I can't do it. It's like it's getting into my brain. All right. So I threaded that up, and even though you don't necessarily have to do it, I'm going to condition this thread, and it just makes the beads pass through, and it kind of lubricates the holes. You don't want to put too much because it can gum up your bead holes, and you want to have clean holes. You don't want to have dirty, gunky holes. So what I would do is I hold this with my thumb and forefinger and just pass this through like so. And it's just getting a little bit on there. I don't want to put too much. Normally, I don't really put like a thread heaven or a beeswax, like thread heavens like this. I don't even know if they make thread heaven anymore. But it's a conditioner, and it protects like natural fibers. This is a synthetic. It's a bonded kind of plastic. So I'll just put this like that. And I think it just makes it nice. It makes it feel nice when you're working with it. And yeah. So I'm gonna wipe off the excess. Sometimes I'll have a piece of paper and I'll put that on there and I'll wipe that off. And I'll just pull that through. All right. And I said they do if they drink Red Bull, because Red Bull gives you wings. All right, so I've got 3 colors. I've got this very pale kind of lavender, and I also have some of this blue. It's a very pale, kind of a grayish sky blue. And I also have this kind of rose water color. And I love them. They're kind of pastels, but I know not everybody loves the pastels, but I do. And I'm going to kind of put these in a row in case I want to make design kind of an ombre. In which case I'd probably put the pink next to the lavender, and then the lavender next to the blue. All right. So one of the things that I'm going to do is I'm going to pick the stone that I'm going to capture. Now, what I'm going to do is just cut this off and make sure I don't cut the power cable. Whoop. And not all shapes are designed equally. So you want to make sure that you have a wide enough bottom around the base of the bead so that it doesn't like fold up and look kind of weird. And we actually are not going to actually need this for a while, so I'm going to just set that on the side. But I am going to take my needle and thread, and I'm going to pick the first color, which is this pink color, and I'm going to pull off 3 beads. Notice I didn't let go of them. I'm going to just hold them while I string them up. It makes it a lot quicker than going one by one. And I'm going to pull it kind of close to the end of the thread. Not too close, but not too far. I've given myself about 5 inches of thread. And then I'm going to take this and I'm going to tie a knot over the original working thread. Can you see that? All right. And then I'm just going to tie this up again. Just overhand knots. I'm not going to pull crazy hard. All right. And the reason why I'm not going to pull too hard is because it can make it super rigid, and I want this one's not as important, but the subsequent ones, it's going to conform to the shape of the stone. So if you go too hard, then you're going to have problems where it's not going to want to bend, and that's problematic. So don't do that. All right, so then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this needle and pass this up through at least one of the beads so that wherever your knot is not going to be where you're working from. All right, it just makes it a stronger piece. So you're not going to be working uh, off of where. So basically, you don't want, if something pulls on it, you don't want all the pressure to go in one little tiny spot. You want it to be kind of pulled throughout the piece, and that will keep it sturdier. All right. So I've got this, and the next thing I'm going to do is take off two beads, two of these pink pinch beads, and I'm going to string those up, and then I'm going to pass this through the bead that I just came through. All right. And that's going to make a little triangle. Another little triangle. See that? All right. And then I'm going to go and pass this through the next bead in the original threesome. And I'm going to string up two more of these beads. These pink pinch beads, and I believe these are 4mm pinch bead, maybe 5mm. In theory, I have calipers here. Let me check real quick for y'all. I just stabbed myself, so the needle, so that was fun. All right, so they are. It says 6mm across. Let me see that again. 5mm across, and probably 3 wide. Yeah, so 5x3. All right. Oh, hi, Julie. All right, so I'm going to pick up two of these beads, these pink beads, and thread them up. And then I'm going to take this and pass this back through the bead that thread just came out of on the other side. And that's going to make a little triangle off of this side. All right. Now keep in mind, I'm not pulling super tight. I am pulling it tight enough that it's not wandering all over the universe, but I don't want it to be so tight that it's super stiff. All right. I'm going to pass this through the last bead in that threesome, the original, the OG 3. And I'm going to pick up two more of these pinch beads. And there you go. All right. And then I'm going to pass this back through the bead that the thread's coming out of, but on the other side. And then that's going to complete the first kind of the foundation of this. So this makes a little three knot kind of action. Now, so the thing is that you like this is designed to conform to it. So what this is going to be is you're going to build this shape up, and then you should be able to conform it to the bead. So if you have a bigger bead like this, it won't have to bend quite as significantly as if you have one that has a super sharp point like this. If you have a super sharp point like this, you're gonna have to bend this pretty significantly. It looks a little bit weird, but um, it is what it is. All right, now let me think about what the next step is because it's been a hot minute since I've done this. So I'm going to um, all right, I'm going to pass this up through the next bead in the original um, set. Now, it's important to have this thread at this weight because if you have a thicker thread, it's going to cause problems where it's not focusing very well. But anyway, it's not going to, if you pass it through too many times, it's going to fill these holes in pretty quickly. Now, the pinch beads are pretty good because the holes are fairly even and they are pretty consistent, which I appreciate greatly. All right, so as I come out of this, I'm going to go up the next bead in this little trio, and I'm only going to go up through one of those beads. All right. And I'm going to make sure that I don't cause any knots, which I'm doing right now. Oh, Carmen's watching. Hey, Carmen. All right. And so I'm holding it like this. And the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up one bead. And then I'm going to go through the one to my left through the top side of this. So basically, I'm going to move this in a clockwise fashion so that I am going to be filling in these shapes here like this. See how that pulled? Maybe not because it's super blurry. And then I'm going to go back up through the other bead here. And how did I do this? All right. And then I'm going to go up through this next bead in the rotation. And I'm going to add another pink bead and then go through the top of this bead here. All right. I should probably write instructions for this because it's kind of confusing if you don't. I guess it's not too bad. Some of y'all are way more experienced at bead weaving than I am. Even though I've been doing it for a while, it's one of those things that if you don't do it all the time, it can sometimes go away. All right, so I'm going to go up through the next bead in that rotation, and then I'm going to come out here on this side and pull that up through, and then string one more bead. And come through the top and the other little petal. I guess it's a better way to describe that. So this one. All right, so we're turning this clockwise. I don't know if there's a name for this stitch. It's just something, it's maybe like a netting. But you're using pinch beads and we're working in threes. So wherever you form your original three, and then off of that three you form other you form other threes, and then you pull them together. And like I said, tension is what's going to make this so that it conforms. I went a little bit too tight, and it's made this little ball, which is kind of cool. It's like a little beaded bead. Actually, let's just make this into a beaded bead. And then what we'll do is we'll go and I'll do this again, but for a larger bead. Because I realize now that I kind of made this for a smaller bead, and I could still make it work by inserting it into this, like a more pointy shaped one. But I think that it'd be cuter just to have the beaded bead. I know that's not what we planned to do originally, but that looks cute. And who am I to stand in the way of cuteness? All right. So hopefully you all are having a good start to your week so far. In that, yeah, I will see Karen on Friday. And so what I'm going around here now is I'm going through the top petal, the beads of those petals, and it will form 3 of them, which is the way that we started. So we're going to be 3 and 3, and just work with 3 for this. So that makes this little beaded bead. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go and pick up the 2 threads from in the next bridge or thread bridge, pass that under those 2 threads, and then I'm going to make a loop. This is a loop that we made. I'm going to pass this under the loop and pull this, and it makes a knot. Normally we don't want a knot, but that's going to help it keep it together. Now, because I did this pretty loosey-goosey, because my intention was to wrap this around the bead and kind of capture it, it's not as sturdy as I probably would want it usually. So what I would do is go back through and reinforce those stitches, and you'll end up with a tighter little beaded bead there. All right. So I'm going to start this over and hopefully not mess up. So originally you start with 3. So 1, 2, 3. And then you pull this down to the bottom. And you give yourself a 4 to 5 inch tail so that you can weave that back through. And then you tie a little knot to the working original thread, and then you tie another knot to lock it in place. And then you take this needle and you pass this up through, so you're not working from where that knot is. And then we're going to pick up 2 beads, and do this again, basically. So if you just are tuning in, you'll be able to see from the very start, because I kind of started over. And that way you can kind of see these petals form, and then you can see how this comes together. Now what I did is I didn't make the petals long enough. So that's where my problem was. I was like, what? What am I doing? Who am I? What's happening in my life? Um, and so I'm just got this. I'm going around the circle of the original three. So, and then adding 2 beads to each of these to create the original petals, and then pass this through the last bead in that original trio. I'm going to pick up 2 beads in this pink color. And then pass this back through that bead that the thread just came out of, but on the other side. And then I'm going to come back up through here. So you've got this little petal, this little trillium. And I'm just going to I'm going to take the tail. And every once in a while I'll do this. And this is where that thread comes out. And I'm just going to tie a knot. And I know that's probably people who are regular, like master seed beaters, are probably like, oh my gosh, what's he doing adding knots in the middle of his work? And the reason why is it's sometimes when you're working with these, especially if you have fairly loose tension on them, I don't necessarily want them to get kind of so wobbly, so wobbly. All right, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take this thread, this working thread, pass this up through the second bead in that trio there. So this one, and then 3 beads, 3 beads, 2 beads, 2 beads, 3 beads. I probably should have looked over my notes before I came on the video, to be 100% honest. But oh well. All right, so I picked up 2 beads, and this is kind of an increase. And I picked this up in that lavender color. And I'm coming over to the next petal, and I'm passing this down through the top of that. All right, and then I'm going to pass this through this bead. And this is kind of an increase. So we're going to, every level we do, we're going to be adding 1 more bead to the thing until we capture it. And then that way it will form a base that will kind of grow. And then so I'm going to pick up 2 more of these kind of lavender beads. And if I'm not making sense, just let me know and I'll try to explain it better. Because sometimes it's tricky. I think it's easier when you just do it. You can actually see it coming together. But then when you're kind of hearing somebody describe it, sometimes it sounds a little bit kind of weird because it's like go through number 1 bead and then go through number 2 bead and then you'll go through this one and then it just sounds kind of weird. Like it's like somebody giving you directions, but if you drive the road and then you see the big chicken, then you know to turn at the big chicken. Hi, June. So today we're kind of creating a capture in theory with these pinch beads. And I may have done myself a disservice by giving myself too short of a thread, but that's all right. So Friday is the creative make along, and it may be just William flying solo with you all. Because I have a meeting in Pittsburgh that night. All right, here it is, y'all. Here it is. All right, so if you can look, we started with the first 3, right? And that those first 3 make that. Let me pop the lead. Then the next row, we added 2 more beads working in circular patterns. So we worked in a circular pattern and came up through here, go through here, add 2 more beads. That'll come through here and go up through here, add 2 more beads. And then we came up and added 2 beads like this. Added 2 beads like this. We'll add 2 beads like this. And then we'll be out. So the next thing we're going to do is come out through here. Then we'll add 3 beads. And then repeat this where we come in. And so we added 1, then 2, then 3, and then you just grow it exponentially. It does get a little bit, when you get kind of further in, if you have a great big bead, then you have to make smaller little petals coming off of that. And I'll talk about that when we get a little bit further on. All right, that looks like a hot mess. If you're just watching, you just turn on, and it's like, what the heck is he doing? But I hope that made it make sense a little bit easy, a little bit better, because you don't have like my fingers in the way. You don't have my self-deprecating humor going on. All right, so I've got this first path. So what I'm going to do is it's kind of ending kind of here in the middle here. So I'm going to go through this second pink bead in that petal. I'm going to go through that third bead in that petal. And then I'm going to go up through these 2 lavender beads like so. And then I'm going to take this and I'm going to put 3 beads in. Let me see how I did this. Actually, I'm going to do 2 beads and the lavender. And then the next row, I'll do the blue ones. All right. I should have just said we're going to make a beaded bead with pinch beads and then call it a day. But instead, I'm like, oh, we're going to do a capture net. I've done this before, but it has been a while. So, all right. So I'm going to go through the end of these lavender beads and come up through these other lavender beads. And basically, I'm going to be cinching that row kind of tight. So I work my thread up to the next level, and then I'm going to add 2 more of these lavender beads. To the next grouping of 2 lavender beads like that. Make sure your beads don't cross over and zigzag, and pull it a little bit tight. The tighter you pull right now, it can get a little bit tricky because you won't want the tension to be too tight, but at the same time, if it's too loose, it's hard to keep it so that the pattern kind of falls into place. Like normally, if you have a pattern and it doesn't lock into place, that's probably why is that tension is off. All right. So basically, I made this little beaded cap. And if you didn't see that, I passed that through the first lavender bead in that kind of sequence. All right. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to drape this on my stone and see how well it fits. All right. And that fits pretty good. That pink kind of conforms a little bit. And then all we're going to do is the next row I'm going to do in this blue color. And you're going to just add 2 more. And I'm going to have to show you how to add thread because I'm running out of thread. All right. So I've got this. I've got this lavender bead, and I've got 2 of these blue beads. And I'm going to go back through this. And this is going to create those smaller petals to work off of. So I did those smaller petals on the first kind of go around off of those initial 3. And then I did those on top of that to create those smaller petals. And what I'm doing is I'm kind of spreading this out. So the next, I've added these 2 to that, these 2 blue beads to that purple or that lavender bead. And then I'm going to go into the next lavender bead. And then I'm going to pick up 2 of my blue beads, and I'm going to do the same thing. So it's basically coming around in a circle. So I've got this like this. And then I'm going to put this over here like so. And it's going to create the petal to work off of. All right. And this, I'm flattening it out, but it's curving up. So keep that in mind. All right. So I'm getting really low on thread. And this is where I think it's important not to cut yourself off too short, because that can happen. So what I would do is I would take another wingspan of this clear or white bonded thread, like so. And then you kind of come down about 2 inches, 3 inches, fold this over, and you're going to make a knot. It's called a slip knot. And you're going to pass that knot up through that loop. Okay. So it makes like a H. And then you come over to where your needle is. And you slip your needle through that loop. And then you hold this with one finger, and then you hold this with the other finger, and then you pull until you hear a snap. All right. And then the next thing you do is you take your needle off, and then with those 2 shorter ends, you make a knot, and then you make another knot. So this is effectively cinching that into place. Now the trick is keeping these threads out of the way while you work, because they will get in the way and they will tangle up. All right. So take this and thread your needle with the longest leg. And then pick up 2 or go through the next lavender bead in the cycle. And then pick up 2 of these blue beads. And then you're going to pass it back through that lavender that you just came out of, but on the other side. And then you pass this through the next lavender. And you pick up 2 blue beads. And you pass that back through the lavender that you just came out of on the other side. And then you just repeat that until you get all the way around. So you don't have to listen to me say the same thing over and over again. But basically, that's creating a little tiny triangle. So this is made up of all these little tiny triangles. And then when you complete the row, then you fill in that if you're going to do kind of if you're going to do if you're going to increase, then you're going to want to add 2 beads in between these, and that's how you get that increase, is where you would normally add 1. If you wanted to create a ball like we did the first time, you would add 1, but whenever you need to do an increase, you add 2. If that makes sense. Does that make sense? Or am I like tripping and just like talking? I don't know. You tell me if it makes sense. Makes sense to me, but if you don't know what you're doing and this is your first time, it may be a little bit rough. And the reason why these pinch beads work so well is because they're 3-sided. And then so every time, don't forget to go through the next lavender bead. Because if you forget to go through that next lavender bead, when you go to add those 2 beads, you're not going to be adding them in the right place. And this will make it a little bit tighter too, if you for like you're creating basically a band of 3 beads to tighten that up. And that's where like your strongest structures are going to be, is in this kind of 3 bead formation. And you're just going around in a circle around your piece. All right. And you can start it seeing to develop as you look at it coming kind of forming over my finger. You're starting to see that develop, that shape develop. All right. So what are you all having for dinner, if it's dinner where you are? I know some of you all have already said. Now, the reason why I don't go through 2 beads at once when I'm doing this with the lavender beads is that I want to make sure that I'm being mindful about only adding to that little petal one at a time. Because if I try to go through, that's where you kind of lose count. And then it's easy to get this to be kind of rhombus shaped as opposed to this kind of circular shape. And so you're just working, you're making these little three bead shapes over and over, adding 2 at a time on this row, sewing into the previous row, weaving into it. Now I will say it's super important to keep those other threads um, from tangling up in your current working thread, because that can cause all kinds of knots, and then that's the sad time. You don't necessarily want to have a bunch of knots that you have to take out, as it will slow you down considerably. Also, you notice I'm not pulling like super aggressively. I'm going one bead at kind of pulling one little kind of segment at a time, so that if this gets caught around this bead like so, I can just pull that out easy and it won't get tangled up. Because this is one of those things where it can get super tangled, and then once it starts getting tangled, then you're like, where am I? Who am I? What am I doing with my life? Because then you're like, is this the working thread or is this the working thread? And this is a pretty easy once you get it going. And once you understand that it's kind of a working of three, then it's way easier to kind of conceptualize where the next beads are going to go. Hopefully, I'm not boring you all to tears. Um, I know some of these projects we reach a point where where it's just a lot of repetition of the same thing, and it can feel kind of monotonous, at least to me. Sometimes I watch these videos and I'm like, how do they stay awake? Like, um, because you've got it's just doing the same thing over and over and over and over and over and over again. And you will have to start eventually you'll reach a point where you're gonna have to start coaxing the beads into that kind of cap like pattern. And if you don't do it, and you try to keep everything flat, what's going to happen is it's going to, uh, you're going to have a lot of thread exposed as opposed to, see, I didn't do it. Go up to the next speed and go through it. See, I got distracted. Susan says, I enjoy watching. Oh, good. Yeah, it's kind of meditative if you can get into the flow of it. Um, it isn't like high, like with metalwork, I feel like it's kind of exciting to watch because like a lot can happen with just a couple of hammer blows. But sometimes these seed bead things, you end up putting all this time and energy and it doesn't look like you've done very much, even though you have and you've already put a lot of time into it. It grows, but it grows pretty slowly. So I hope y'all don't mind. All right. So this is the last bead in that kind of lavender loop. And what I'm going to do is add those two beads, and then we're going to jump up to the next row. All right. So we've worked this all the way around. Trying not to get everything tangled up. And at this point, you're going to start seeing this start becoming where there's like crinkledy parts, and that's where it's wanting to fold over. All right. So this is the original three, and then it grew, and I got my tension off at some point because I can see where there's a great big gap. Oh, well. That's because we moved up to the 2 row. I know why that happened. All right, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come up in this row, and since I've worked basically 2 at a time, I'm only going to be adding 1. This and jump up to the next row by going around this circle, but going through the first bead. And then if it makes it easier, I can switch colors so you can see the individual rows. Maybe I'll do a purple again, and you can kind of see the ombre. Now, if you can see, this is kind of getting tangled up. Oh, the reason why that's getting tangled up is because I jumped up too close. All right, so this is a good example. If you make a mistake like this, instead of going back through with the tip of your needle, go through with the butt of your needle. And what that will do is it will prevent it from getting from splitting your stitch. Because sometimes what you can do is you go through, ooh, I made a knot, y'all. All right, so before I get too far, because once this gets pulled into a knot, it's almost nigh impossible to get it out. So what I'm gonna do is pull this thread out from where I was, and then wherever that knot is forming, I'm gonna undo that knot now. Because if you don't undo your knots when you make them, then you are gonna get more problems later on than if you just take a moment and undo the knot. I've tried to do it where I just pulled really tight, hoping that my knot would get so small that it would just come undone, or that the knot would be so small that it would pass through the beads. But you're working with such tiny, minute clearances that if you try to do that, it's just not going to work. So just take a time to take that knot out. I know it's tedious. It's not my favorite either. I love it when the projects come together and they don't have any problems. But the reality is that, if something happens, you start talking on the phone or you're trying to demo something, um, invariably something might happen. And that's okay. Life is like that. You can't always predict how things are going to go. So I'm just going to untake these or undo this knot, hopefully. And I don't know. Are you all liking this? Because if you don't like this, then I'm going to stop. But because there's nothing more tedious than watching somebody undo a knot, I feel, because you're like, well, just get it. And it's hard to kind of sometimes get it, especially when you're trying to look through a camera to do it. Anyway, so here you go. There's this knot. You're gonna take this knot out one day, someday. I'm gonna take this off screen for a second. I know you can't see me do this, but I need this to hold this closer to my body and actually see what I'm doing. So it's super important to get this get it done while it's relatively large, because if you wait, you're going to have a problem like this where the thread kind of wants to bond together, and I did not wax this side, this second thread, so that will add it makes it a little bit not fun. Oh, there it goes. There it goes. Susan says, I have a parrot that is excellent at taking out knots. Well, this parrot, I'm gonna have to borrow your parrot because this knot is like 1 millimeter long or in size. Diane says, I spent 45 minutes this morning with a knot girt. I finally got it. Feeling of accomplishment. Yeah, it is kind of a release once you get it out. And normally I'm pretty good about knots and them coming out pretty easy. But for some reason, this one is wanting to be really difficult. So if this happens, I'll get another needle and work it also this way. There we go. All right. So that's what it was, y'all. Gonna take years off my life, y'all. All right. So I'm gonna rethread this on my working needle, and then I'm gonna back this back through. I'm gonna back this back through that bead that I messed up on. And then I'm gonna come back through and put it in the right place. And I always think that if you mess up, it's fine. I mean, we just spent a little bit of time with this. If you really mess up, just cut it off and start over. It's not the end of the world. You know, I think sometimes when we work on something for a little while, we get the sense of attachment, and that's cool, but sometimes it's just easier and better to start over. Like earlier, I was struggling with trying to get that in the right place, and I ended up making that little beaded bead on accident, and yeah, that was it was better just to start over instead of trying to force and finagle it. All right, so I've got this, and I'm going up through this blue bead, and this next little trio I've got going, and then I'm gonna take this out, and then I'm gonna add a purple bead, and I'm gonna come back through the next one in this row here, right next to it. All right, and this is gonna help tighten it up a little bit. And so I'm going to go up through this bead. And come up through this one. I'm going to add a purple bead. And I'm going to go down through the top of this one. Oh, the other thing that I like this is sometimes like people will bead with crystal. And generally speaking, with like S word crystal or whatever, when you're trying to bead with it, sometimes around the holes, it can be sharp and it will cause the thread to cut and break. And then you're sad because then you're trying to find all of your beads on the floor later on. But these ones, they don't seem to be super sharp on the tops here or on the ends. So that's nice because then you don't cut your thread inadvertently. All right, so basically I'm just going around these circles and I'm just adding wherever there's two of these beads wanting to connect and make a trio, I'm going to do that. So I've got, and this will start cinching up that circle. It's like a girdle. And I'm going to try, if you get a lot of working threads where you've had an add-on thread, you can also stop and work those in through your beads so that you don't end up having to go crazy with it trying to tangle every few seconds. All right. And I would just normally do that. All right. So you're going to continue all the way around the piece and then put the bead that you're going to do in here and just keep going and work your way up through that shape. And it's going to kind of create that netting that captures your bead. And once you're happy with the way that it comes, kind of conforms around it, like so, and it gets enough, then we'll do strands up every other bead, and it will create kind of like a long shape here. All right. So I don't know if you all like this or not. But if not, that's fine. I don't really like it either. I'm gonna practice off camera because my camera is almost out of juice. So I don't want to have to struggle with this any longer. And I can see where I dropped a stitch. So that's probably where a lot of my headache is coming from. But basically, if you get the concept, it's just building this kind of trifoil shape and building it out and then creating these kind of girdles. And then you bring this up and then you'll create more petals and then go straight up and lock this in place. For some reason, I thought this would be an entertaining video, and it's not. At least it's not from me, y'all. All right. Okay. So sorry about that. That's probably not the best demo. I'm going to try to perfect that a little bit and then come back and maybe show the process some other way. I just don't feel like this is, I don't know. I think if I work these in, I can kind of fix that where I dropped a stitch and then come back around. All right. I hate to do that, to kind of cut off in the middle, but it's just not coming together as easily as I would like it to. And I need to come in and review my notes a little bit to make sure that I'm steering you all in the right direction and not leading you astray. All right. That didn't work. So it's okay. But sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work. Sometimes you have a good beating day, and sometimes you make something that looks like this, which is not terrible. But I can see where I dropped a stitch, and that is where some of this problem's coming from. All right. So I'll see you tomorrow evening. I'll come up with a better project. At the very least, we made these cute little beaded bead out of the pinch beads. Um, and we'll finish. I'll finish this up off camera, and then if people are interested in seeing how I finish it, then we'll go from there. But I feel like I've gotten to the point where if I keep trying to force it, it's just going to be super tedious. Um, and I don't really like feeling like that, when I'm like trying to force it. So anyways, all right. Thanks everybody for watching. I'll see you tomorrow. See ya.